Sword of Coming Episode 15. In the previous episode, Chen Ping'an returned to the small town and crossed paths with both the quirky gatekeeper and the scholarly Zhao Yao. Witnessing the lively exchanges and the small acts of generosity that marked their daily lives. He also reunited with Lu Shenyang and Ning Yao, discovering the mysterious and ancient treasures in Lu Shenyang's house, including a strangely clawed suit of armor and a delicate golden cassia mosaic. As the town prepares for the arrival of outsiders, Chen Ping'an and his friends are reminded of the lurking dangers, and Ning Yao warns them about powerful strangers whose motives may threaten their safety. Amid all this, Chen Ping'an's own frugality and unusual habits stand out, leaving a lasting impression on those around him. At the end of the previous episode, Ning Yao watched in astonishment as Chen Ping'an, the miserly young boy, dashed past her with a basket on his back, setting the stage for new encounters and unexpected challenges. What will happen next? Stay tuned. And the story continues. The young boy ran under the night sky that was filled with twinkling stars, continuing all the way to the creek after exiting the small town. Even though it was night, Chen Ping'an didn't run any slower than if it were day. When he arrived at the creek, he deliberately avoided the covered bridge, knowing that the water beneath it would be far too deep. Instead, he selected a section of the creek that was only knee-deep. Setting down his large basket and straw sandals, he retrieved a smaller bamboo basket that he had hidden inside the larger one. He tied the bamboo basket around his waist, carefully removed his shoes, and rolled up his pants before stepping into the cool water to begin searching for pebbles. His left hand was still wounded, and the stabbing pain meant he could not immerse it in water. As a result, he used only his right hand to sift through the rocks at the bottom of the creek, while it would have been easier to collect pebbles from the dry banks. Chen Ping'an knew, as Lu Shenyang had mentioned, that pebbles exposed to wind and sunlight lost their unique luster. The experience reminded him of the clay he had tasted while traveling through the mountains with Old Man Yao. Even though clay might look ordinary, moving it from one place to another could change its taste entirely. Old Man Yao had once said, "Trees moved will die, and humans move to stay alive," while clay moved from its home transforms into deities placed high. The natural transformation that came with relocation fascinated Chen Ping'an, and now he understood it in terms of the pebbles as well. The creek was nameless, and a variety of pebbles rested along its bed. Some were as large as a fist, while others were only the size of a thumb. For the generations of townsfolk, these colorful stones were nothing remarkable. Collecting them might even invite ridicule, as people would see it as a foolish use of time when the farmland and chores awaited. But Chen Ping'an had a different perspective. Each pebble he selected, each one he carefully placed into his bamboo basket, felt like a small treasure, a fragment of hope. Bending in the creek, he continued to lift and move aside larger rocks. Within a short time, he had collected 7 or 8 pebbles of varying size and color. Some were golden orange like tangerines in autumn, others white and smooth like the skin of a newborn. There was even a pitch black stone that seemed to glow faintly and a bright red pebble resembling a large peach blossom. Every pebble was unique. Locals called these stones snake gall pebbles, noting the smoothness and weight they carried in hand. In daylight or candlelight, the fine veins running through them shimmered like the scales of fish or snakes. After about 2 hours of meticulous searching, Chen Ping'an returned to the bank to transfer the pebbles from the bamboo basket into his large basket, layering the bottom with reeds to protect them. With his bamboo basket still strapped around his waist, his straw sandals in hand, and the large basket on his back, he moved to another section of the creek to continue the work. By this method, he slowly filled both baskets, navigating the creek in a careful and calculated manner. Each pebble added bringing him quiet joy. As he paused briefly to look up at the starry night sky, hoping for a shooting star, he realized none would appear tonight. Nevertheless, he focused on his task, knowing that the true reward lay in persistence. Soon, he had collected over 80 pebbles, including one particularly large and striking red stone, flawless and radiant like a glowing orb of blood. Among the smaller stones, he noticed a light green pebble that reminded him of the plum green pottery in the town. It was smooth and round, instantly endearing itself to him. Chen Ping'an then approached the green stone cliff by the creek, a place known among children in the town as a popular bathing spot during the summer. The water under the cliff was deep, second only to the covered bridge. Chen Ping'an had previously noticed the abundance of snake gall pebbles hidden in the underwater pits here while bathing with Lu Shenyang. He remembered vividly how Lu Shenyang had once proudly retrieved a large, translucent pebble, adorned with red lines resembling frozen blossom petals, and asked Chen Ping'an to carry it home. On that occasion, Chen Ping'an had passed the stone to their neighbor Ji Gui, who had struggled to carry it and nearly dropped it. Now, decades later, he still remembered its beauty. As he prepared to dive, Chen Ping'an noticed a young girl in green sitting atop the cliff. Her cheeks bulging with food, she ate voraciously, as if starved in a previous life. Yet Chen Ping'an chose not to disturb her, fearing he might ruin her moment. Still, he had come to this pit for the pebbles, and he resolved to continue, bringing up 1 or 2 stones at a time. Careful not to draw her attention, he set down his baskets and sandals and leapt into the water. His first attempts yielded ordinary stones, but after a few dives, he surfaced triumphantly with a dark green snake gall pebble. The girl remained seated, her back turned, entirely absorbed in her food. Chen Ping'an's determination never wavered, and soon he had collected 7 or 8 brilliant pebbles, each more dazzling than the last. While gathering pebbles, Chen Ping'an noticed fish hiding under the rocks, known locally as rock slate fish. Previously, he had released similar fish, focusing solely on collecting pebbles. This time, a thought struck him. Why not catch a few for Ning Yao and brew fish soup? It was a practical idea. Returning to shore, he casually tossed the first fish into the bamboo basket. When he caught a second one, he saw the girl crouching beside the basket, eyes wide with fascination. She resembled the Ji Gui had once shown for a large pebble. Chen Ping'an tossed the second fish into the basket as well. The girl looked up, her eyes bright and full of curiosity, while Chen Ping'an turned back to continue diving. By the third fish, the girl had emptied her hands, secretly wiping them on her clothes, and looked up at him with the same wide-eyed wonder. Chen Ping'an felt slightly embarrassed under her gaze and asked, uncertainly, "You want these fish?" The young girl nodded earnestly, her expression sincere. Chen Ping'an smiled and said, "Then I'll give these 3 fish to you. I'll catch some more later." The young girl blinked before smiling in delight. Her joyful expression was bewitching and much like a fox spirit. Chen Ping'an was especially familiar with this kind of expression. Indeed, this was exactly how he had looked at Lu Shenyang when he was young. At that time, Lu Shenyang had been the leader of the children in Apricot Blossom Alley, always catching snakes, hunting birds, and reeling in fish. It seemed as if there was nothing in the world that he could not do. Many of the children who once followed Lu Shenyang had eventually gone on to other paths. Some became disciples at the Dragon Kiln. Others served as attendants in small shops or managed accounts for relatives. A few were deemed good for nothing by Song Jixin and ended up laboring on farms. In the end, only Chen Ping'an had continued to stick close to Lu Shenyang. Carefully, Chen Ping'an used a few strands of dogtail reeds to string together the rock slate fish he had caught and handed them to the young girl. She weighed the fish in her small hands and realized that, though plentiful, it would not be enough to cook a dish of fried fish with green peppers. Her eyes sparkled with eager anticipation as she glanced toward the creek, silently asking for more. Chen Ping'an understood her expression and, in a soft, apologetic voice, said, "I have to brew some soup with the fish that I catch from now on. So I cannot give you any more." The young girl pointed at her nearby bag of food, suggesting that she could offer some as payment. Chen Ping'an smiled gently and shook his head. "Even though your snacks are tasty and filling," he explained, "they are not as nutritious or nourishing as fish soup." The girl nodded, accepting his decision without complaint. She returned to her spot, carefully placing the fish down before resuming her feast, tackling her small mountain of food with deliberate focus. Chen Ping'an could not help but be curious about her identity, yet he did not ask. Judging by her simple yet neat outfit, She was not the daughter of a wealthy family from Peach Leaf Valley. She reminded him more of the neighboring Ji Gui, pretty, quiet, and self-contained. For a brief moment, he worried that she might be a maidservant who had sneaked out to eat. Aware of the strict discipline imposed in large households, Lu Shenyang had once explained that in such homes, even the slightest misstep by a maid could result in extreme punishment. Chen Ping'an shivered at the thought. Meanwhile, Chen Ping'an returned to the creek and caught another 7 or 8 rock slate fish. The fish flopped wildly in the bamboo basket, rocking it back and forth. His body was pale, the spring water piercing to his bones, and his left hand, still wounded, throbbed painfully. Finally, recognizing his limits, he climbed out of the creek, jumped off the green stone cliff, and hurried into the tall grass by the creek to avoid the cold wind. He gathered 3 or 4 different types of grass, many with soil still clinging to their roots, and crushed them into a fragrant green paste in a small pothole on a rock. Turning his back to the young girl, Chen Ping'an braced himself and removed the cloth wrapping his left hand. Sweat streamed down his face, mingling with the cold water dripping from his hair. Though his wound had partially healed, the sight was still gruesome. He had not prepared any fresh cloth strips, having been so focused on collecting pebbles and fish. For a moment, he froze, unsure how to proceed. At that precise moment, a hand appeared, holding several strips of dry cloth. The young girl had ripped them from her sleeve and offered them to him without a word. Chen Ping'an smiled through his grief, immediately rubbing the grass paste onto his wound and skillfully wrapping the strips around his hand. Tying a knot with practiced precision, his movements were fast, smooth, and slightly dizzying, like a butterfly flitting over flowers. Squatting nearby, the young girl raised her thumb in silent approval. Chen Ping'an pointed at his eyes with a bitter smile. "It hurt so much," he admitted quietly. "I was shedding tears." The girl's gaze flicked briefly to his large and bamboo baskets, filled with pebbles and fish. Chen Ping'an explained, "These pebbles can earn me money. And the fish are important too." She appeared puzzled but remained silent, staring vacantly at the shimmering creek as if lost in thought. The water bubbled and gushed over the stones, the stars above sparkling in the tranquil night. For a moment, it seemed as if only Chen Ping'an and the young girl existed in the world. His breathing gradually calmed, and the rushing water became a gentle creek. Yet he knew he could not linger too long in the cold spring air. Without understanding medicine or health, he had developed a keen awareness of his body over the years. Sensing the danger of exposure, Chen Ping'an quickly put on his straw sandals, tied the fish basket to his waist, slung the large basket over his back, and waved to the young girl. "I am leaving now," he said with a smile. "You should also go home soon." Walking down the stone cliff, he glanced back and warned, "The water is extremely deep around the covered bridge, so be especially careful. When you return, it is safer to walk along the paddy field. Even if you get muddy, it is better than falling into the creek." His words sounded slightly ominous even to him, reminiscent of the curses spoken by Ji Kan's mother. He stopped speaking and ran north toward the small town, the baskets heavy on his back, yet a happy expression on his face. For the first time, Chen Ping'an felt a sense of resolve, a desire to live well and work hard. He wanted to earn money to buy ink-scented couplets, colorful door gods, meat buns from Aunt Mao, and perhaps even a cow and some chickens like Song Jixing. Meanwhile, the young girl returned to her mountain of food with solemn determination, as if each bite were a battle. Just as she tackled a peach cake, her body froze. A man had silently appeared beside her, not tall but solidly built, with an intense gaze that made it impossible for anyone to meet his eyes. Observing his daughter's stubbornness and the remaining food, he felt a mixture of helplessness and doting. Though he wanted to speak gently, he could not. The girl suddenly asked, "Father, why did you not accept him as a disciple?" His heart lightened slightly. "That child has a good personality, but his aptitude is too poor," he explained. "Even if I took him as a disciple, he would fall behind his senior brothers. He is also far too ordinary, though extraordinary in the small town. His bonded porcelain was smashed when he was young, leaving him with no protection from ancestors. Yet strange things occur around him. That is why Song Jixin and the female chose to live nearby. Sure. The young girl looked dejected. So he is something like bait? She asked. The man nodded and smiled faintly, explaining that if he and the girl were not swordsmen unconcerned with the world, he might have kept the boy close to help him a little. She remained low-spirited, but he gently advised her not to be upset. He then gestured toward the covered bridge, explaining its construction to suppress a 1,000-year-old iron sword, an enormous effort for a brief suppression. Shu'er nodded absently and returned to her snacks. Patting her shoulder, he reassured her, "Your father is going to visit someone. You can stay here and eat slowly. No one will steal your food." The girl clutched his arm briefly, her crimson bracelet shining like a curling flood dragon. Before returning to her feast, the man muttered to himself in frustration, imagining the consequences of her overindulgence, then fled the scene, slapping his own back in exasperation. Past midnight, Chen Ping'an returned to Lu Shenyang's house. The courtyard was silent except for his friend's thunderous snoring. He placed the large basket and bamboo basket in the kitchen, changed into fresh clothes, and began cleaning and preparing the rock slate fish. He covered them in porcelain dishes to protect them from insects. Then he selected his favorite 5 or 6 snake gall pebbles and returned to his room, briefly glancing at Ning Yao's sword resting quietly on the cabinet. Finally, Chen Ping'an crawled into bed, his body warming but eyes wide open. His left hand still throbbed, and he was alert, knowing how unpredictable outsiders could be. He stayed awake all night, listening carefully for any sound in the courtyard or near the doors. At dawn, he rose and prepared to draw water from the iron lock well in Apricot Blossom Alley, carrying the bucket pole with 2 empty buckets. Lu Shenyang peeked from under his blankets. "Chen Ping'an, you are up so early? Where are you heading?" he asked. "I am going to draw water." Chen Ping'an huffed. "If you see Ji Gui, do not forget to greet her for me," Lu Shenyang called out. Chen Ping'an ignored the remark. As he prepared to leave, Lu Shenyang added, "Chen Ping'an, if you help me, I will also help you dive for pebbles in the pit." A radiant smile spread across Chen Ping'an's face. "Sure thing," he replied. Lu Shenyang rolled his eyes and buried himself under the blanket. "Disloyal brat, I knew this would work." On the covered bridge, a middle-aged scholar sat alone, waiting for first light. When the first ray of light peeked over the horizon, he looked up and said with a faint smile, "A dark room for 1,000 years. A room illuminated with a single light." In this episode, we saw Chen Ping'an showing his resilience and determination as he braved the cold spring creek, carefully caught fish, and tended to his wounded hand with the help of a quiet, observant young girl. We witnessed his resourcefulness, his deep sense of responsibility, and the beginnings of his desire to work hard and live well, despite the hardships surrounding him. Meanwhile, we also got a glimpse into the young girl's life and her relationship with her father, revealing the careful balance of guidance, protection, and understanding in their small world. Through these moments, we see both children navigating challenges, forming bonds, and learning from each other, setting the stage for the unfolding journey ahead. What happens next? Stay tuned for the next episode of Sword of Coming. If you enjoyed this episode or found it interesting, do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to receive notifications for the latest episodes following the journey of Chen Ping'an. Thank you for watching, and we will see you again in the upcoming videos.